welcome back to the channel with me, Delta, and today I'm going to be playing some Pokemon Showdown, and specifically Balanced Hackmons, which is a custom kind of game mode where you can put any Pokemon, any ability, any moves. There are very few limits on what you can do. It is called Balanced Hackmons because there are a few restrictions. For example, Huge Power is an ability which doubles your attack stat, and that is one of the few that is banned. And some Pokemon, like, for example, anything that's not in Gen 8 isn't allowed. It has to be in the Gen 8 deck, sadly. And some things as well in Gen 8, I believe. There might be some stuff that's not allowed. I know Shedinja is banned, because Sturdy Shedinja was a thing. There are ways around it, but it was very annoying. So, as you can see, I've got quite a few teams. So if I go to my Hackmons team, I'll do a quick rundown of it. So, this is Kill, and it is named that because that is what it does. It has Simple, which doubles stat changes, Geomancy, and a Power Herb, which means within one turn, this thing can get triple special attack, triple special defense, and triple speed. It also has no retreat, which will raise all stats by 1, or in this case 2. So, again, double all stats in one turn, without having to consume Power Herb, but it also makes it so you cannot retreat, except this is a Ghost type, which bypasses that. And then we've got Stored Power, which does more damage based on your stat changes. Essentially, if this thing is allowed to get set up, it will wipe the enemy team. It's arguably the most powerful thing on my team. We also have the Dark Soul, who is a Zacian. Oh yeah, that is one thing that's banned. Zacians, completely forgot what the form is called, but the form where it actually has the sword. Only this weaker form is allowed, but it's still incredibly powerful. It has Belly Drum, which takes it to half health and then gives it a 4 times attack boost. And then a Citrus Berry, which gets it back up to 75% health when it does that. Then Pixelate, that makes normal moves Fairy type and boosts the damage. So it's got a extreme speed with 100 base power and is Fairy type, so it gets stab as well, and it can be at 4 times attack. Even without the 4 times attack, it does a lot of damage. But having that very powerful priority move is incredibly useful. And in case it does get on low health and is about to die, you've also got a 300 base power with Pixelate Explosion. That is also Fairy type. Now, the final sweeper on the team, it's set up with kind of 3 sweepers and 3 supports. The final sweeper is Fear the Fish, and you should fear the fish, because the fish requires no setup, requires no sort of other Pokemon to do anything, doesn't matter what the enemy's using, it doesn't have counters like this. This gets walled by Dark types, because Dark types are immune to Psychic, Stored Power will do nothing. The Dark Soul, if they can end up tanking it, it's incredibly frail, pretty easy to kill. And if they can kill it before it gets Belly Drum off, which, considering that makes him lose half his max HP, then, you know, that can pretty much kill it pretty quick. The fish will kill you. There are things that can tank it, but if you don't have a bulky water type, there's not much you can do. So, Barraskewda by itself has 345 attack and 408 speed, which are already incredibly high. That 345 attack, then, with Fish's Rend, has stab, so that's 1.2 times bonus? No, it's 1.5 times, actually, I believe. Choice Band multiplies it by another 1.5 times. Primordial Sea makes Heavy Rain, which I believe is another 1.5 times, but might be wrong on that. And then Fish's Rend has 85 base power, which doubles to 170 if they move first. And there are, I think Ferozma is the only thing, Ferozma and Regieleki are the only things you'll ever see in Balanced Hackmons that will outspeed this fish. So you can see why it is very good at one-shotting things with absolutely zero setup. We have Amogus, which is very simple. How the ability Imposter or the move Transform both work, it's, you know, what Ditto does, you transform into the enemy. You copy all of their stats, all of their stat changes, and their ability. You do not copy their item, which is why it has leftovers, and most importantly, the reason I'm using Blissey for this, you do not copy their health stat. So it will have the exact same stats as the enemy, but 714 health. No 2 is a very similar setup to this. So this is the reason it's No 2 is it's a new version of a Gengar I had called No that did a similar thing. Actually, no, it did a completely different thing, now that I think about it. But either way, it made the enemy not able to attack. And the way it does, the way No 2 does this, Ice Scales, half damage from special attacks, along with it being a Chansey in general, means it's incredibly hard to damage. But it doesn't keep those stats for long, or that ability for long. It uses Imprison turn 1. And what Imprison does, and the reason it has Belly Drum as well, because lots of things run that, Imprison makes it so that if this Pokemon knows a move, the enemy cannot use that move. Turn 2, it will use Transform. The problem is, it now, because it is the enemy Pokemon, knows the exact same moves, so they are literally forced to switch or struggle themselves to death. And finally, Immortality, which is maybe not the most powerful like Kill is, but it is probably the most useful. So, Prankster and Haze are already a necessary requirement. You need to have something with Prankster and either Haze or Topsy-Turvy. That is just required in balanced Hackmons with the current meta. Because Prankster will make any move, it says status moves, but it is any move that doesn't do damage. So, Haze eliminates stat changes. The enemy uses Spectral Thief, for example, to steal quadruple on every stat from Kill. You swap this thing in a Haze, and then it's gone, before it can even attack. Although Kill will die, but, you know, that's fine. That's why I have 2 other sweepers. So, it has Toxic to deal with, to actually do damage. Recover for, you know, healing, and Substitute. And because it's Prankster, it can use Substitute and Recover before anything else, and Giratina as a whole is just incredibly tanky, in this form at least. So it can it gets rid of stats and then Toxic stalls whatever it's fighting. The main weakness of this team is Dark types, because along with being immune to Kill, they are also immune to Prankster. And it's very rare for a Dark type to steal a move, to steal stats with Spectral Thief and then, well, I mean, and be a Dark type. Most people don't really run Dark types that often, and when they do, they're usually for tanking. Alright, so here we have a battle that I just recently did that I'm going to go over, and it was incredibly close. I'll try to explain things as they're going on. It does go a bit quick, but I should be able to do it. I've actually recorded this once, and I kind of forgot to press the record button, so this will take 2. I'll go and start. So he sends out his Giratina, and I send out Kill, expecting to set up here. I get paralyzed, which is a massive issue, but I go for the, I gone for the Geomancy and get my stats up anyway, and I'm hoping to still be able to sweep, except I get Whirlwinded out, and now Immortality's here. My Power Herb is gone, and I'm already at a pretty huge disadvantage. I Toxic it, but it turns out it has Magic Bounce, which is very important later. He goes for the Core Enforcer. That gets rid of my ability Prankster, for now at least, and I swap out. I go into the Dark Soul, expecting to kill it, and get Whirlwinded. So now No 2 is out, who also gets paralyzed, but I do go for the Imprison and Transform strategy anyway. He puts out some Stealth Rocks, and I transform into his Giratina. He swaps into Zekrom to take my Nuzzle that I'm using, which, you know, he's immune to that due to being an Electric type. Hit him with Core Enforcer, which does over half his health. He's trying to set up here, but it won't be enough to kill, because Giratina is incredibly tanky, and I finish him off with another Core Enforcer. So that is his Zekrom down, at least. Palkia is now swapped in, hitting me with a Water Spout, which does not do too much. I get some Stealth Rocks out, and now my plan is just have Stealth Rocks and Whirlwind through his team until one of them kills me. So every time I use Whirlwind, one of his things is going to swap in and get damaged by the Stealth Rocks here, until we eventually get back to his Giratina, and I'm not sure why, but he decided to just try to struggle me to death. Maybe he thought it would do enough damage. I'm not really sure, but his Giratina goes down pretty quick. Because Struggle specifically, it's a low base power move, and it always makes you take 25% of your health when you do the move. So it is, I mean, it's meant to be absolutely awful, it's meant to kill you. He goes out to Shuckle, which I Magic Bounce that Strength Sap, which gives me a tiny bit of health, and Whirlwind in his Palkia. Now, this Palkia uses Dragon Energy, and that kills me pretty quick. I send in Kill, and he swaps in this level 1 Salazzle. Now, I'm going to pause for a second to explain this. Level 1, this is a strategy I've seen before. It's not as popular recently, but it is still very, very good, and I'm honestly not sure why more people don't run this, especially with Salazzle. I've not seen it done with Salazzle before, and it is terrifying. When you have a Pokemon at level 1, they obviously have a very, very low health stat, and the move Leech Seed will damage an enemy for a percentage of their health, a flat percentage, and then heal you for the damage dealt. So if you're level 1, that's going to be a full heal. If you have Sturdy, when you're at full health, you can't be killed, so you put out Leech Seed, and then every turn, at the end of each turn, you might be reduced to 1 health by an enemy attack, but then you're going to be full healed. The only way to deal with that is status effects, whether your own Leaf Seed or Moongeist Beam, which ignores abilities. And since Salazzle is a Poison Fire type, that takes out status effects, leaving only those other options of Leech Seed, Weather, and Moongeist Beam, none of which I have. So the only way I can kill the Salazzle is with the Salazzle. I have to transform into it. And that is the only thing I can do to kill it. So he sends out his Leech Seed, and I send in a Amogus to try to transform into it. Now, he Anchor Shots me in, I can no longer switch out, but I then, he swaps into Kartana here, so that means my Leech Seed ends up doing nothing. I should have gone for Anchor Shot, but it wouldn't have really mattered too much. I do send in Kill. I'll be 100% honest, I'm not sure why I can still swap out, but I do anyway. So, he, goes in with that, Kill, and I send in the Fish. Palkia is the one and only thing that can completely wall the Fish. It has no chance against it. I decide to stay in and just do what damage I can, because I know the Fish isn't going to do much else. But he ends up missing his Hydro Pump, allowing me to damage him one more time, and then swap into Amogus, because I realized, at this point, if I go back a bit, he used Hydro Pump twice in a row, and obviously the Fish is resistant to Hydro Pump, so I was thinking that's kind of a weird choice. And it is actually Choice Scarf, because, actually no, it wasn't even just that, it was the fact that it outsped the Fish. And you can see here, max speed is 328, Fish's max speed is 408, which I have. I mean, you pretty much always run max speed, or very close to it. So, I knew there was no way that thing outsped my Fish if it wasn't Choice Scarfed, which means it's going to use Hydro Pump again after this, so that's why I swapped in Amogus, because Amogus would transform into Palkia, and Palkia would take next to no damage from Hydro Pump. Yeah, so we go into Palkia here, he Hydro Pumps it because Choice Scarf, he can't use any other moves, and again, goes for the Hydro Pump, and I finish him off with a Dragon Energy pretty easily. Same way he killed off my Kill, I believe. He sends in that Salazzle. Now, I have to swap out to Giratina so that I can re-transform. So, Immortality is out, and then I swap back into Amogus for Attempt 2. And Attempt 2, for some reason, I decide to go for Leech Seed instead of Anchor Shot. So, he does get Leech Seeded, but then he just swaps out because he can do that. He swaps into Kartana, and I Anchor Shot it, so his Kartana can no longer swap out, I believe. And I send in the Fish, which dies. That is expected. I pretty much sent it out to just take a hit there, which, now, that might seem like kind of a bad play, because it kind of is, honestly. But you'll see that ends up being very important, having the Fish die there. I send in the Dark Soul, expecting it to do a bit more damage. It doesn't. I knew it wasn't going to be able to take a hit. I was actually very surprised when it survived at 1 HP, and then it dies. And now, I noticed, once again, 412 speed, 348 speed. That thing is Choice Scarfed. It can only use Behemoth Bash. Or Behemoth Blade. And that is the one and only move it's able to use right now. So, after this, I send in Amogus. And the thing is, I hadn't figured out it was Choice Scarfed, but it was. He swaps out into Salazzle. Again, I don't know why he can just swap now. maybe if you swap out the thing that Anchor Shot you can swap out. I'm not sure exactly how the move works. He goes back into Cortana. It's a lot of just switching back and forth at this point, trying to counter, because, again, I'm stuck with Toxic, which will only work on one of his 3 Pokemon, and Blissey. So, not in a very good position here. He goes into Salazzle, I go into Amogus, it's below half health, I have his Pokemon at half health here. And I actually end up finally going for the Anchor Shot and just killing it because it was below 100% because that leaves C from earlier, I believe. Shuckle swaps in, I swap back to Immortality. This is the only thing that Toxic is going to work on. And so I just end up Toxic stalling it out, and there's not really much I can do. And at this point, I'm thinking I've lost. There is his Kartana left, and my Blissey. Immortality can do nothing, because its only way to do damage is Toxic, and he is a Steel type. So, it's essentially his Pokemon versus his Pokemon, but it's at like half health, because my Blissey has been damaged pretty heavily. So, I'm expecting to get Behemoth Blade to death very soon. And I know it has, other moves, because I had transformed into it once, so I'm thinking, if I can manage to win the speed tie, I might be able to kill it with a Sacred Fire. But I'm expecting him to do the same to me with Sacred Fire, and probably kill me first. It really was, I was thinking all down to a speed tie. But, remember when the fish died to Behemoth Blade earlier? I've got Immortality out, and I decide to stay in and let him kill it. He chooses to kill it with Behemoth Blade, because it is the best move to use here, which means he is now locked into it. And because the fish got killed earlier, he has exactly the amount of PP to kill Immortality and then run out as soon as I send out Amogus. He has Flash Fire, so Sacred Fire turns out doesn't do anything, but he's using Struggle because he has the exact amount of PP needed. If he was not Choice Scarfed, and if he hadn't done those exact number of Behemoth Blades, I would have died, and I would have lost that. So that is it for this episode. It is maybe short, I don't know, I haven't looked at the timer, but I might do this a bit in the future if you do want to see any more of this, and I will see you next time.